Welcome back, everybody, to Passage to Profit. Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, we'd like to introduce our guest this evening, Robert Raymond Riopel, and he's an author, podcaster, app designer, and he's also the founder of A Mentors, Inc. So welcome to the show, Robert. And your book is about clues to success. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what that means and how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, I'm an international best-selling author and a trainer. And for the last 18 plus years, I've been blessed to not only travel around the world and train from 100 to 6,000 students at a time for 3 to 5 days at a time, but I've been able to share the stage with some of the greatest thought leaders in the world. And I was watching what clues were they dropping, what similarities did they have to other people. And because I love watching people. You can learn so much just by watching what they do. And so from that, I was able to start gleaming some great success clues. And I decided to put them into my book and break it down to 6 very simple steps that if someone wanted to create a life to take themselves to a new level, that they can put these in. And I kept it simple for a reason, because I could make it really tough and sound, extremely smart, which I'm not going to say I'm smart, because I'm not. I'm just an everyday person. But I knew if I made it too tough, people wouldn't do it. So I keep it very easy, which the problem of that is some people then go, it can't be that simple. And then some people don't do it. So throughout the book, I just walk people through on how to really dream big again. And then from their dreams, how to actually bring them into reality.
So I'm really anxious to hear these clues. So you have to share them with us.
Well, one clue I do, and on the front of my book, I have my hands up like this, because on the stage, I'll go, give us a clue, and I'll get everybody to do that. And one is one of the reasons they struggle is they try to reinvent something. They see a system in place, and they look at it and they go, I've got to do it my way. And so they reinvent it, and then they wonder why they struggle. So I tell them, I said, and the clue is, if you want to reinvent the wheel, do it later. Do it later. Follow the system, get the success. And then once you have the success, if you still want to reinvent things, go ahead and do it then, because at least now you have the success first, and now you can make some adjustments to it. So that's an example of one of the clues.
Well, that's really interesting. Not so long ago, we had Dave Knoll, who is a TV show creator. He created the show Chopped, for example. And one of his mantras is think inside the box. He says, successful TV programs are just really combinations of previously successful TV programs, right? And so to be successful in that industry, he felt that, you needed to take American Idol and combine it with, some car show, or something, and then now you have people voting on cars, right? So you take elements from previously successful, Top Gear is what I was thinking of, but you take successful elements of previous shows and you put them together. And so the public is already sort of acclimated to the idea of, the programs.
Yeah, and it's proven already. And that's the thing, no matter what you want to do, chances are someone's done it before. So find out how they did it, find out the mistakes they made so you can avoid those, which will allow you to actually get that success even quicker. And that's the big key. And then another clue I have is something I learned the first time I went to India: choose to be happy. And that is so important, especially during this time of what's going on in our world, is you have a choice from moment to moment. You can look at things and go, oh, why is this happening, and get upset about it. Or you can say, you know what, it's happening, but I choose to have a happy life within that. And, I learned that from an amazing young lady who was in an arranged marriage. And I was curious. I'm like, how do you make that happen? You haven't even met your husband yet until the engagement party. And she said, my mom told me, choose to be happy, so that no matter what goes on, at least you still have a happy life. And I love that concept.
So are you using that philosophy with me?
Yeah, I think you can choose what you think about. And I think thinking about everything you have instead of everything you don't have is great, and how far you've come instead of how far you have to go. But to go back to the first point a little bit, I do want to say, when we started Passage to Profit, Richard had done some radio early on in his career in college, and I had never done any of it.
She's better than I am. So
no, but we had no idea what to do. And thank God Kenya was there, because Kenya came up with the format, and was something kind of new when we started doing it. And law firms weren't doing podcasts typically back then. I mean, this is a radio show and a podcast, but Kenya had all the bones, right? And all the structure in place, and like everything. Like we were like, oh, we want to do a call-in show. She's like, no, I don't think you're ready for that. And so I think that you're really right. Like if you try to invent something from the ground up, the whole shebang, it's overpowering. It's overwhelming. It's much tougher.
Well, the payoff, if you make it, can be large, but you're taking a bigger risk because it is new people, and it may take longer to get acceptance from it. So I mean, the idea of personal computing was revolutionary.
Right.
And Bill Gates and Steve Jobs turned out to be right. But if they had just invented a better calculator, their odds of success might have been a little bit better, right? So,
well, it took a lot of money
to
where we are today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yeah, and Richard, to go to a point you had made, though, think of everything that's out there today. Nothing's actually original. Nothing's original. People have looked at what's happened and they've improved on it, or they've taken it and they've enhanced it, or they've, made adjustments. So they've combined, like you said, let's combine this TV show and this TV show to put this one out. And that's why it's a success. And so that's the key. And this is why having coaches, why having mentors in your life, people to model, are so important. Being able to sit there, like when I wanted to be a trainer, I found one of the top trainers in the world, and I was willing to do whatever. I shined his shoes, I pressed his shirts to be able to mentor from him and get that information. And that took me from not being on stage and never training to all of a sudden being in front of thousands of people around the world. So having mentorship and coaches is critical, because no idea is new.
Right.
Right. And that reminds me, I went to this presentation, and then we have to give Kenya a chance to say something. But I went to this presentation where this young man was saying, well, Google only shows you the products it wants to show you, and I'm thinking, well, but all the department stores had buyers like for hundreds of years or however, and you only got to see what they went and bought, right? So that's not new. It's just a different tool that they're using, right? So Kenya, do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to say thank you for saying all those kind things. Teamwork makes the dream work. So we've kind of evolved in this whole radio thing together, which I'm very thankful for. And what I was going to say to Robert is, I was reading a little bit in your bio about your training implementation, and there's a term called, it's like the cellular shift. So can you talk a little bit about the cellular shift and what that means?
Yeah, so when I do trainings, I use what's called accelerated learning. And with accelerated learning, it's not just me talking. When I'm on stage for up to 12 hours a day in front of an audience, I get them so involved that they're not just thinking differently or making changes and understanding, but we do a cellular change right there on the spot, so that when they leave a training, unfortunately in North America, and I only know the statistic for North America, unfortunately only 3% of people will ever use the information they've been taught. And that's because they get it intellectually, they hear it, they listen to it, they ingrain it in their head. But by ingraining it into the cells of their body, is when they leave, they're now more apt to take action because they feel it. And it's not just, oh, I think this is good and I can do something with it. They now have it in the cells of the body. And as an example of that, I'm a breakthrough artist specialist. So one of the trainings I do, I actually put thousands of people across 36-foot firewalks where the coals are 1,200 to 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit. And when they're going across, again, you see the doubt. Can I do it? Oh my goodness, I don't know. But then they take that first step, and all of a sudden you see the doubt go into, oh my goodness, I'm doing it. By the time they hit the end, it's like, I did it. And then we anchor it in as if I could do that. What else could I do? And so all of a sudden you can take someone from disbelief to belief within seconds. So that's where the cellular shift comes in.
Wow, that's impressive. Does anybody ever burn their feet? I mean, does it always work?
No, look, it's definitely mind over matter. I taught my brother-in-law how to be a firewalker, and he now owns the Guinness Book of World Records for a firewalk for over 500 feet. The second time he ever went to re-break the record, he was in his ego, he was in his head, he wasn't present. 3rd-degree burns to both of his feet.
Wow.
Wow. So, well, I do want to say one thing, the coaching is really important. And I, like, Kenya has been our coach, like her name is Coach Kenya, but she has been our radio coach and really helped us a lot. And I do feel like everybody needs a coach at some point in their lives. And I think that what you're doing is a little bit different because it says you're helping people tap into like their inner greatness. And it takes a special coach to do that. So what are some of your other techniques?
Well, it's first helping people get permission, giving themselves permission to actually go for what they truly are passionate about. You know, we've been conditioned from young that, you know, in the beginning we had big dreams. Anything was possible. I could be a lawyer one day, a doctor the next day, an astronaut the next day. But then as we grow up, society starts telling us what is realistic and what's not. You don't have the right education. You weren't born into the right family. So our dreams get smaller and smaller and smaller. So by giving people the permission to own their greatness with confidence, not arrogance. And there's a big difference there. And being able, and like I love, as we said, you know, with Jason and his brand, his bowler and his beard, and I can see equipment behind him. I can tell he's living his passion. Like that, it just resonates from him. And I love his message. So it's getting people to have the confidence to be able to do that. And the reason I teach it is because that's where I started. So full of self-doubt, you know, that I'm born into a poor family, wrong side of the tracks. There's no way you can be successful. And yet it was because of the courage of having an amazing wife that won't let me play smaller than I am, that I'm getting to do what I do today, living my passion. So I now do that with people because I love to just, when that light comes on in their eyes, maybe sometimes for the first time in years, it's amazing. And so I'm living my passion by pulling passion out of others.
So that's great. I mean, and so is that how you motivate people? I mean, what are some of the things that people who work with you come away with? And you talk about being a motivational speaker. How are they motivated, and what do you do to motivate them?
Well, actually, I cringe at that word motivational speaker because motivation only lasts for an hour or a week. And it goes back to the cellular. I look at it as a life transforming trainer. So we go through the 3 elements of change. First element is awareness. You can't change something if you're not even aware. So look at what's happening with Google. It's now being brought to awareness that there has to be changes in the regulations, right? So there's the awareness. Then the second step is understanding. Why do you have that belief? Why are you feeling the way you do, good, bad, or otherwise? So then the third step is where it comes to that cellular change. Being able to, once you have awareness and understanding why you believe what you believe, now if it's a belief that doesn't work for you, now we can tap into the change of it. And we can actually do the shifts right there. And so when I work with people, it's in different areas. If I'm working in finances, as an example, one of the main trainings I do around the world is helping people understand why they're broke, why they're in debt, and helping them to learn how their spending habits are. Are they managing money? And then taking ownership. Look, when I was $150,000 in debt, my wife and I were stressed out, and we started taking ownership that we created the debt. We don't have anybody else to blame because we used to go, well, they lost my investment. No, but we gave them the money to invest. So taking that ownership was a huge thing. And then from the ownership, then again, here's some steps if you want to be financially free, here's what you need to do. And because I lived it, I went from $150,000 in debt to actually being retired financially free 9 months later after learning it. I went, that worked. And then that's what tapped into my passion of wanting to help others do it. Because if I could help even one person do what my wife and I did, it would make it all worthwhile. So I don't know if that answers your question, but we go in and it's each person's individual, but it starts with the awareness.
I was going to ask you, you do a lot of group functions. Do you also work with people one-on-one? I
absolutely do. My biggest passion is developing trainers. I've developed trainers around the world, and it's finding out what's their message and how can they be more authentic on the stage, more connected. So that's my big passion right there. So I do one-on-one mentoring in that way.
That's really great. So Kenya, do you have another question?
I do. What would you say has been your most prolific transformation based on the people that you've worked with?
Oh, wow, goodness. For me personally, is getting out of my own way and just living what I'm teaching. I love the saying, and it's so true, that which we need to learn the most we teach. The reason I teach what I do is because it's a reminder of what I'm looking for in my life and the journey I'm on. Because the moment I quit learning, I'm done. So even though I train on stages around the world, I'm still in every audience I can be. I want to be a student. I'm hungry to learn. And I used to be one of the most closed-minded people you ever met because I was taught to be in that box. Don't question the box. Don't think outside the box. And even if you hate, and especially with work, even if you don't like what you're doing, if it's secure and supports your family, you do it no matter what. And I look back now and go, how many people are in that box? And if I can teach them to tap into their passion and make money doing what they love, oh, how much better is it than that?
That's right.
That's right.
So what do you tell people when they face setbacks? What kind of advice do you give them?
Well, I'm a big believer there's no such thing as a failure. It's feedback. Some of our greatest lessons come from what did not work in our life. And so I actually, it's one of my mantras, I want to fail faster, because the faster I can fail, then the more lessons I actually get and I can make adjustments. And so I encourage people to ask 3 questions, whether when it's something they do themselves or they're working with a team. What worked in the thing we just did, and make a list. No emotion about it, just this worked, this worked, this worked. What didn't work, make a list. And then what can we do different? And by making that adjustment, then you get back in, you do it again. And look, you two doing your podcast and doing your radio show, where you are today is probably a lot different from where you started when Coach Kenya got you going, because you've done it again and again.
It's been downhill ever since. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, Richard, but there's that awareness, right?
No, I know we have to agree with you. We think it's been an uphill journey for sure. So anyway, Robert, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Why don't you tell our audience where they can find you and where they can read your book?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you were so gracious to have me on your show, if they go to robertriopel.com, just my name, RobertRiopel, they can actually get the digital copy of my book, Success Left a Clue, as our gift to them. But it does come with a caveat. See, it's not a book to read and then put on the shelf and make shelf help. That's not going to do anybody any good. I wrote it as a workbook because the 3rd step is take action. So I have action steps all the way through, and I'll actually say in a chapter, did you do the last step? If not, stop reading right now, go back and do that step before you keep reading. So they'll be able to get the full digital copy.
Well, that's a delightful surprise. Thank you very much.
you.
I'm sure our audience will appreciate that. So
My pleasure.
You are listening to Passage to Profit with Richard and Elizabeth Gearhart, our special guest, Robert Raymond Riopel, and we'll be back right after this message.